Her muscles locked for a second before she was throwing herself around in a fit of chaotic panic. She swiped at the back of her neck, hurling a spindly black spider to the floor. Its body was about the size of a quarter, with disproportionately long legs. It scurried under a bookshelf, leaving Sophia shaking and sobbing. Fearing her legs would give out, she sank to the floor, eyes fixed on the spot where the spider had been. The commotion hadn't woken the others, and Sophia looked helplessly toward the table as she rubbed the back of her neck. Her whole body now felt prickly, as though she was infested with crawling things. She scanned her arms and legs as her breathing returned to normal. It was hard to remain calm, but it was possible that one of the many webs she had to pass through had a spider that caught a ride on her. She felt too tired to stand, and her tongue was itchy, a tickle at the back of it. She cleared her throat, expecting her companions to jolt awake, but it only served to make the tickle more persistent. The second time she coughed, her mind went to Eli's cold, dead eyes and the spiders crawling out of his mouth. Instantly, she gagged and began coughing harder, half choking, trying to calm herself. The tickle had become a raw pain in her throat, and her mouth hurt. Something rattled around, and she spit it into her hand. It was a tooth. Horrified, Sophia felt her breath catch as she gaped at the open palm. Her tongue pushed around the little window that used to be her right incisor. As her tongue brushed it, her canine wiggled, and she immediately panicked, her hand flying to the tooth to hold it in place. She felt it loosen and detach from her gums. Sophia whimpered and let it fall into her hand. She gagged as another tooth wiggled free and fell to the floor. She clamped her mouth shut, holding 3 teeth in her hand as tears streamed down her face. She wanted to huddle into a ball, wanted someone to fix it for her. She was too scared to open her mouth and call out to Eve and Winna. She began hyperventilating, short and shaky intakes through her nose, struggling to keep her breathing under control. Her mouth tasted coppery, and her vision blurred from her tears. The spider reemerged from the shelf and started scuttling across the floor towards her. Its movement was erratic, as if it were a stop-motion creature. It was bigger than before, almost as large as her palm, all legs with a swollen, shiny body. "Oh, God," she whispered, backing up. Another tooth tumbled onto the floor the minute she spoke. She pushed herself back and kicked out as the spider came closer. The chair they put in front of the door was at her back, and she felt it come loose as she pushed herself away from the spider. Bang! A sudden pound on the door had Sophia jumping. She was back in her chair. She lifted her head off her arms, and a sob escaped as she whirled around, still trembling and confused. Her arms were prickly and heavy and asleep. But she'd been sitting on the floor. Her teeth were everywhere. Bang! The chair in front of the door groaned, but held. Her mind was slow to process her surroundings. Her teeth weren't missing anymore. How had she moved without realizing? She'd been sitting right there in front of the door. Had she dozed off? The other women were sitting up, soaked in fear, with wide eyes. Eve pushed back her chair and took cautious steps towards the door. When had she fallen asleep? Sophia tried to remember the last few hours. They had ticked by with a foggy, dim-lit slowness. Eve had closed her eyes after Winna. There had been pacing above them. Was the spider in her dream or in real life? She didn't remember putting her head down and shutting her eyes. But time had certainly passed. Sophia's clothes were completely dry, no longer clinging to her with dampness. "The bolt is still in place," Eve whispered, "but I think I hear breathing on the other side." Bang! The door buckled. "Am I dreaming?" Sophia cried out. "Is this real?" "Soph, snap out of it," Eve snarled, taking a step back from the door. "What if it gets in here? Do we have anything to defend ourselves?" Winna leapt up, looking as disheveled as Sophia felt. Bang, 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 bang. Whatever was on the other side of the door had grown restless, beating the door with no reprieve. "Stop!" Winna shouted, covering her ears with her hands. Then louder, "Stop!" And then everything was silent. The silence was worse. Sophia, Eve, and Winna stood, too terrified to move. None of them took their eyes off the door. It started quietly. So quietly, Sophia didn't realize she was hearing it. Humming from the other side of the door, it sounded far away. An ugly humming, minor and off-key. The exact sing-song pattern in every horror film. Sophia deflated as her childhood fears surged over her. She felt paralyzed. She was still shaken from her dream and bone-tired. She was suddenly the victim of every scary movie that Eve had made her watch when they were growing up. The humming persisted, growing no louder, but it somehow filled the little library, a buzzing that needled into her brain. Winna grimaced, massaging her temples as she sank into a chair. Eve was frozen by the door, breathing heavily as she smeared away the deep green ooze from the cut on her arm. It was almost black now. She was shaking. She looked like a rabbit caught between freeze and flight. There was no more fight. Eve, her fearless friend, who was always first to try anything new, who took on challenges with pizzazz, looked spent. Her coily hair hung limp, and her arms dangled, defeated at her side. Tears and sweat had erased any trace of her makeup, and there was a hollow desperation in her eyes. She was turned toward Sophia. To her surprise, Sophia realized both Eve and Winna were looking at her to make a decision. "We have to get out of here," she said, gesturing around the room. She knew it was true. Help wouldn't reach them in the library. Eve nodded solemnly. A scratching on the other side of the door accompanied the humming now, small broken nails dragging down the wood. Not trying to get in, more reminding them that something was waiting for them to come out again. All three took a few steps away from the door. Sophia shivered. "What?" Sophia blurted. "Are you crazy? We're safe here. Nothing can get to us." "For today," Sophia responded, her voice more confident than she felt. She tried to speak over the humming. "It would be a slower death, but in the end, we'd still die. We have no food, no water, no way of contacting anyone. How would they know where to come and rescue us? Yes, we feel safe now, but this isn't sustainable." "Look for something you can defend yourself with," Eve suggested, and Sophia was grateful for the immediate trust and support. Eve moved into the room and flinched as though something had pinched her. Sophia narrowed her eyes at her friend, but Eve was moving on as though nothing had happened. "I'm not leaving," Winna pushed, still firm in her resolve. "We are, though," Sophia said. Once again, Sophia was bullying Winna into a choice. She felt a twinge of guilt, but it was overshadowed by her certainty that leaving was the right thing to do. "I don't want you to be stuck here alone, and I don't think you want that either. We can't force you, but I think your best bet is to come with us." She, too, began searching the room, looking for a heavy bookend or figurine. "But," Winna gulped, "it will get us." "I don't want to die here either," Sophia declared. "Winna, I'm scared too." Words burst out of Sophia. Everything she'd been feeling seemed to break free. She continued, "God, I'm so scared, and that humming just..." She paused, wildly gesturing to the door. "I wish I didn't apply to this stupid thing. I wish we broke down on the way here. We figured something was happening before anyone had to die. I don't want to see what's behind the door. I want to curl up in here and wait for someone to come get us. I don't want to die." She paused, taking a breath before continuing. "But no one is coming. We need to find our way out." The idea made Sophia's stomach turn over. She wished she still had the screwdriver. Eve winced again as she reached to grab a letter opener from one of the upper shelves. "What is it?" Sophia's focus honed in on a friend, the humming shifting into background noise. Nothing, Soph, Eve muttered. It's nothing new. There's nothing you can see anyways. It's more than the pus now. It feels like there's something moving under my skin. Eve held out her wrist to Sophia. It was true. There was the burning red gash from the garage, oozing green pus, which worried Sophia in itself, but the inside of her arm had no additional cuts. A wormy slithering shifted under Sophia's prodding fingers, and she recoiled as Eve quickly pulled back her arm. Bile rose up in her throat, and the feeling of the spider in her neck flashed through Sophia's mind. She hugged herself, grabbing her elbows to keep from shaking, before she locked eyes with Eve. She had no idea what to say that would make it better. Instead, she muttered lamely, hoping that it sounds reassuring. Don't worry, we'll get out. We'll get you help. Eve looked uncertain, but nodded back. They were surrounded by books and information, but nothing stood out to Sophia as something that would defend her against whatever was scratching at the door. Winna was sitting in the chair, eyeing the door blankly. Her shoulders sagged. I wish the humming would stop, she mumbled. I don't. Eve gripped the letter opener. She scanned the room. At least I know where the thing is. Winna shrugged, looking unconvinced. Sophia nodded in agreement with Eve. The thought of silence on the other side of the door was unsettling. The scratching made it hard to focus, but they also knew exactly where the threat was coming from. The door seemed to hold it off, so whatever it was corporeal. She felt a boost of confidence, blurting out, That thing is physical enough to not float through the door. Winna sighed. Yeah, I guess whether it's humming or not, it can't get through the door. What even is it? Sophia felt an adrenaline rush that accompanied her renewed hope. I don't care. Whatever it is, it's going to meet the blunt edge of this when we finally head through that door, she said, brows furrowed as she lifted a chair up and inspected the leg. Help me break one of these off? Eve immediately understood and picked up the nearest chair, holding it on its side and bringing her foot down onto the joint where the leg met the seat. It snapped off easily, leaving Eve with a makeshift wooden club. She handed one to Winna and broke off two more. Taking a leg from Eve, Sophia turned toward the door and tightened her grip on the heavy leg. I think this is a bad idea, whispered Winna. She held the leg close to her chest, her knuckles white. It's better than staying here, Eve responded. Winna frowned, looking at the door. I think we're safe in here, she muttered. I think it only feels like we're safe in here. Sophia was sure of it now. The security she'd felt, the house wanted her to feel safe. Not the house. It was older than the house. Whatever it was had existed in the darkness of the forest. It was there before Carter and Oak stepped foot on the land. It had lured them and the other participants just as it had the other unfortunate souls in the past. And how it had orchestrated things so the women had willingly entombed themselves inside to die, slowly, in safety. No, we need to get out of here, Sophia continued. We need to get out and find a way out of the house. I'm with you, Soph, Eve said as she gently pulled the chair from out under the handle and away from the door. Get ready to run. Winna, if you stay here, there's no guarantee you'll survive. Are you coming with us? Yes, I don't want to be alone, Winna responded. She adjusted her grip on the leg, holding it as if she were preparing to swing a baseball bat and dropping into a runner's stance. Okay, Sophia said, taking the handle. Her heart was pounding and her muscles jittering with nervous energy. On 3. 1, 2. Eve readied her makeshift club, preparing to swing. The humming on the other side of the door abruptly cut off. 3. Sophia yanked open the door. End of chapter 17. Hello, Goldberry Fairy. Thanks so much for coming, hanging out and lurking. Hi, Kay. How's it going? Nightmare scenario. The one that really got me was the the teeth falling out. They talk about how that's a really, really common nightmare people have, is like people losing their teeth. So pretty nasty. It's just one of those things that like we all hate, I guess, but we've all been through it, you know, getting into adulthood. Like we've all lost teeth. We know what that's like as kids. So it must just be something that we've all been like, that really sucked. I hated that. I hate injury and sickness. Yeah, Eve's wound that's like infection-y and nasty. Very creepy. I do not like... All right, you guys, thank you so much for dropping in on our Stream Raiders battle. We are going to run it here, and we'll get another one going shortly after. Hey, RC! Oh no, is that a frozen hug? It is like... We had quite the snowfall here. It is our first day of snow, and my goodness, it is no joke. Like, none of the roads have been properly plowed yet or anything like that. So here's hoping that it's slightly better situation down in South Canada there. Jumping Bamboo, congratulations. Most kills and assists. And Lancer Scrolls are for you. I think we can do... I believe in us. I think we can do a silver. Welcome in, Jumping Bamboo. Welcome to Storytime. Every Tuesday we get together and read books. This is normally we kind of stick in the like classic literature side of things, but this is our first contemporary read. We have permission from the author Andrea Mackenzie to read her first self-published horror novel, and very creepy indeed. We're going to be finishing it tonight. Plowing is happening. Okay, good. Good. Just having things be a little bit more like, I don't know, more able to be navigated is going to make a big, big difference for getting around. I hope everybody's having a good start to their week. I hope that, we can help have a little bit of a cozy night. Even if we're reading a scary story, we can get settled in together and just enjoy a lovely little story. So we still have 8 chapters to read tonight, so we'll probably hop on into our next chapter pretty quickly here. Some of them are pretty quick and breezy. All right, why don't we hop on into chapter 18. Sophia let out a guttural scream as Eve swung out into the hallway. There was nothing there. Sophia's muscles, which had been coiled and ready to spring into a dash, became shaky, and she took a breath that ended up as more of a sob. The hallway stretched long, empty, and dim in front of them. What? Winna breathed, confused, but her relief was unmistakable. Sophia trembled beside her companions, frozen, looking down the hallway. 2 offshoots in a corner to pass before getting to the stairs. There's nothing, Eve whispered. Should we go? Sophia's limbs felt heavy, but she clutched the wooden leg, ignoring her exhaustion. She looked down the hallway to the right of them. Nothing. Yes, she finally responded, glancing at Winna reassuringly, quickly and quietly. Down this hallway, then it's just the hallway to the left to get to the stairs. Even as she was saying it, the plan had too many steps, too many things that could go wrong. They moved as a group, cautiously on their toes, heading toward the far corner. A slapping sound reverberated across the floorboards, coming from the hallway that branched off ahead of them to the right. They would have to pass it on their way to the bend. They unanimously hastened their speed. Winna shrieked, pushing Eve and Sophia to move closer. I see it! Oh God! Go! Go! She hurled her chair leg at the gray, bony fingers curling around the corner ahead of them. The leg missed, hitting the wall a few feet too high. Sophia broke into a desperate run with Eve and Winna, not even bothering to be quiet. Sophia's legs burned as she pushed herself to reach the far corner before the thing blocked their path. A decaying corpse that used to be human pulled itself into the main hallway, waxy skin clinging to bones. Elbows protruded oddly above the shoulders and bowed outwards. It moved surprisingly quickly, palms smacking the floor, fingers digging in to drag the rest of it. Its neck bent awkwardly to hold up its head. Long, dark hair hung limp in tangles to the ground and down its back, covering the yellowed lace of the outdated dress. Winna's nails dug into Sophia's arms as she shoved her forwards, spurring Sophia onwards. Sophia felt lightheaded, like her ears were full of cotton. The adrenaline that pounded through her body was the only thing holding her up as she raced past the unblinking eyes that had sunken into the hollowed face. The corpse swiped at them as they passed, but it wasn't far enough into their path to reach them. Go! Winna squealed as she pushed herself in front of the others, arms out, bracing for the wall in front of them. Sophia didn't even feel the impact, just felt Eve's fingers wrap around hers as they followed Winna down the final hallway that would lead them back to the stairs. Sophia looked back for a moment, milky dead eyes fixed on the three women, and its jaw had unhinged, allowing the mouth to open in an unnaturally long O. It was already heading towards them, pulling itself with smooth, decisive movements. Eve was behind her, gripping her hand as they sprinted past the observation room. The thwack and drag behind them became quicker and louder, more desperate. Winna was halfway up the stairs, scrambling with her hands and feet. There were no risers, so when Eve pushed Sophia in front of her, Sophia screamed at the horrible dead woman dragging herself down the hallway through the cutout openings. She was mere feet behind them. Winna reached the top, throwing open the door and bursting through, turning back and grabbing Sophia's hand to pull her up. Eve yelped behind her as her hand was ripped from Sophia's grasp. Sophia whirled and watched as Eve tumbled backwards, tripped up by a hand that had darted through the gap in the stairs and wrapped around Eve's ankle. No! Sophia screamed in response, shaking Winna off and reaching for Eve. Eve pushed herself off the back of the bottom of the stairs. She stood up, holding her wrist to her chest as she stepped forward, wincing but panicked. Sophia was halfway down the stairs, holding out her arm to Eve. The gray lady was around the corner now. Eve wasn't quick enough to avoid her grasp. The bony fingers clamped onto her ankle, and Sophia strained to grab Eve's outstretched arms. As Eve's feet were pulled out from under her, an expression of absolute terror overtook her features. Eve hit the stairs with a sickening crack and didn't move as she was dragged down and around the corner. No! Sophia felt no fear as she charged after Eve, her chair leg raised, ready to strike out at anything that moved. She reached the base of the stairs, swinging herself left and watching Eve's limp hand disappearing behind the corner they had just come from. It was only after she rounded the corner to a still and empty hallway that Sophia realized how impossibly fast the monstrous corpse had dragged Eve away. The aloneness set in again. Nothing moved. But the only door to the left was ajar when it hadn't been before. She warily passed the branching corridor that the gray lady had been down before. The air had become thick, and a pounding in her ears began. Eve, are you there? Her voice came out as a whisper instead of the confident shout she had wanted. No noise came from the dark room beyond the door. Her grip on the leg tightened as she pushed open the door, checking left and right before entering. Only the dim light from the hallway flickered into the room, revealing burned-down candles and pews. A statue of an ascending angel reigned over a small, dusty fountain at the far side of the room. Pictures and art were spaced evenly along the wall. A shrine. Sophia's breathing hitched. This was where Carter's wife and baby were found. There was no one in the room. Eve wasn't there. She turned to leave. The large painting caught her eye, sending chills spiraling over her skin and stopping her in her tracks. The grinning man stared back at her, watching her. It was scratchy black strokes on canvas, messy and abstract, but so clearly him. Hungry eyes, a slash for a smile, ripping up a vicious curve in his cheeks. "Sophia!" She jumped as Winna called her name from the stairs, her voice hoarse. "Sophia!" Winna yelled again, desperation mixed in with panicky demand. "Sophia, come back! Don't leave me alone!" Torn between her desire to not leave Eve again and the absolute terror at being alone in the basement, Sophia snarled at the smiling man. A frustrated growl tore from her throat as she charged the painting, smashing it with the leg. The canvas gave easily under her battering, ripping before falling from the wall and cracking. "Sophia?" Winna sounded like she was nearer. Maybe she'd come down the stairs instead of yelling from the top. "Sophia," a sing-song voice quietly mimicked, echoing around the room. "Don't leave me here all alone." It was enough to snap her back into focus. She looked around, scanning the room one last time before running out and heading around the corner to the stairs. Winna waited at the bottom, clutching the handrail and peering around the corner. "Sophia!" She exhaled, her eyes lighting up at Sophia's appearance, and the two headed up the main floor. Emptiness and a grim feeling of betrayal filled Sophia. Winna slammed the door shut, sinking down against it. Sophia sat beside her, numb and cold. "I left her," she mumbled. "Again. I left her again." "You had no choice, you see that, right?" Winna responded. "You even went back, which was stupid. You could have been taken too." Sophia leaned to the side, spitting up the bile that had surged up her throat, her stomach heaving again and again. Winna shifted away, but rubbed her back. "Sophia, there was nothing you could do, just like with Harper. We have to focus on surviving." Sophia wiped her mouth at the back of her hand as she sat up, resting her head against the door. "I'm the reason we were here. I signed us up for this stupid weekend." "You didn't know. None of us knew. I came along with Harper because it sounded fun." She laughed, a dull, dry sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Eve wouldn't blame you. You shouldn't blame yourself. It's this place." "I felt it right when we pulled up in the drive," Sophia tried to explain. "It was supposed to feel spooky. We didn't know what we were doing." Winna spoke confidently. "I don't want to be alone here," she continued, "so we have to stick together. You have to pull yourself together. I didn't want to leave the library. You said it was the only way, so here we are. We look for a way out, to survive." Sophia closed her eyes, taking some deep breaths. "That thing, she was terrifying, yes, like she'd rolled out of a grave or something. I hope she stays in the basement." Winna groaned, pushing herself up. She offered Sophia a hand. "It looked like Louisa Carter's dress from the photo," Sophia remarked, letting Winna pull her up. The rest of her was decaying, but it was the same dress. Winna shivered, making a face before replying. "I don't know if that's scarier than it just being a decaying corpse monster. I don't want to be hunted down by the dead." She scratched her forehead before running her hand through her hair. "I don't want to die here, Winna." Sophia paced the corridor, I don't want to become like Louisa. Something dead that scratches on doors. Something with mushroom skin and dead eyes. I don't want to be a puppet that the house, or whatever it was before the house, uses to kill the next person that ends up here. I don't want to be trapped in here. I don't want to have to tell Daniel that I'm the reason Eve is gone. She stopped to take a breath, throwing up her arms and looking at Winna. Words poured out of her as if a dam had broken. She was unable to stop herself, rambling on. This whole thing is scary. I know I've said it already, but I'm terrified. I feel sick even thinking about what to do next or what's out there. I see the grinning man everywhere. I can't escape him. Sophia cut off, shaking her head as her shoulders sagged. She took another breath and began, quieter than before. I'm so tired. We need to survive. We're getting out of here, you and me. Sophia desperately wished Eve was there to lead the charge. When it was too jumpy to make decisions, too easily coerced in the direction the house wanted them. Sophia was forced to ignore the lump in her stomach and the urge to push herself into a corner and wait for someone to rescue her. She knew she couldn't afford to sit around